So
Okay.
hi, oh, here comes the screen.
There it is.
Awkward pause on YouTube to start. Hi all, thanks for joining us. If we haven't met before, although we both recognize quite a few names in the chat, so I suspect we have chatted with most of you. But if we haven't met before, I'm Marnie Stockman, CEO of Lifecycle Insights, and
Alex Farling, the crazy guy who used to own an MSP, who started this whole thing.
Mark introduced you as a recovering MSP.
Recovering MSP. Yeah, I'm the recovering MSP that had all the same problems that you guys did, and got together. Or actually, Marnie brought most of the team, but got together with Marnie and team to build this thing. So. Our whole goal has been to just try and make this an easier process for everybody. And so one of the most common questions we get, Mark, don't go spreading rumors like that. One of the most common questions we get is, I'm in the tool, I've got all the data, but how do I get it out to my customer? How do I actually build the QBR that I want to send home with my customer? Or in some of my favorite language, how do I build the QBR my customer deserves? So that's what we're going to talk about today.
So before we get started, first, if you're not familiar with Lifecycle Insights, next week I'm going to do a demo of all of the bits and pieces. So at the end, I'll send over a link to a registration page. So if you want actual clicks of how did he get the data to land in all of those places, I'll walk through all of the pieces. This is really, as Alex said, we have folks that ask us every day in support tickets and emails on calls, like, okay, so how do I build? What do I want to include in the business review my customer deserves? So we want to walk through that. We don't suspect it'll take an hour because we know it doesn't take an hour to build a business review. That's also why we're here. But if you have questions and want to dig into anything, we're happy to take the hour and dig into any pieces and parts that you want. So keep the questions going in the chat. And again, remind me in case I forget that I'll put the link in so that if anybody wants to see a full demo beyond building the business review, that we're doing this next week as well. So Alex, we want to build a business review, and here we are in life. We've cleaned our data, right? Our assumption is we've plugged in, we've cleaned our data, we've done an assessment on our client. Where do we go from here?
Yep. So we're going to do some sanity checking to begin with, right? Every time we think we've cleaned our client data, then an engineer goes out and deploys a new asset or something like that. So we're just going to go sanity check a lot of data points real quick to make sure we're really ready and that we don't need to do any last minute cleanup. And we'll actually walk through some of the last minute cleanup and show you what it looks like. So logged into the tool, you can see I'm on my dashboard. I've actually got two windows open. This is by design. I'm going to use both of these. So we'll show you what you can do if you have an ultra wide monitor or two monitors or wherever. You can do it side by side for the sake of being gentle to everyone on a webinar. I'm not going to share three screens, but we will we'll utilize multiple tabs here just to show you guys the best way to get this done. So essentially what I've done is logged into the tool, opened up a second tab, and now we're going to take a walk. So first thing I always sanity check is my assets, right? Garbage in, garbage out. If I deliver my client a QBR based on bad data, they're going to have a bad time, and I really want to have it cleaned up before it gets to them. So I like to come look at my asset list. I do a couple of quick sanity checks. Number one, I'm looking for duplicate assets. And by looking for it, I mean, I'm asking Lifecycle Insights if it's found any.
Would you find it for me?
Yeah, right. I'm a huge fan of not having to do the hard work. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to select show only duplicate non-hidden assets. And Lifecycle is going to tell me which assets have been duplicated. I can sort by serial number and decide which ones are the ones that actually have value for me to go show to my customer. Somehow my engineers have managed to document the same firewalls twice. I know that I've already kind of priced and set up a couple of these. I know that some of the data is bad. So I'm simply going to hide these in reporting, which means we're going to remove them from the budget. We're going to remove them from the asset list. We're going to make them disappear. Now, in the perfect world, I would send an engineer back into my PSA tool, into IT Glue, into the data source to clean these up. But as an account manager, I have a deadline. I'm in a hurry to get this out the door. I have to present to a customer tomorrow. So I'm just going to do the quick and dirty cleanup on these, which is come down here and do, update hide in reporting. And I will simply check the box to hide these in reporting. Again, once I hide them, these will get removed from every data set inside the tool other than this little data set here that says show only hidden assets. And we can see here, I've got a small number of hidden assets for this client. So I'm going to go back to my normal view, which defaults to show only non-hidden assets. And then we're going to go take one more sanity check. I have two assets here that do not have end of life dates. This means that these assets aren't going to show up on my budget. This is probably a problem, especially when one of these assets is $5,000. It doesn't do us a lot of good to go present our client with a budget and then go, oh, surprise, I forgot to tell you about $5,000. That is how we lose a popularity contest. So this device here has a $0 replacement cost, so I'm not super worried about it not showing up for end of life. I probably would still put an end of life date on this Datto appliance, but I don't know what it is. I'm not gonna cause a fuss over that with my customer, but I am going to get an end of life date on this printer. So this particular printer, my client might keep it for 5 years. They might keep it for 15 years. It's a printer. They probably aren't going to throw it away till it catches on fire. So I probably want to come out here and decide what end of life looks like for this asset. So I'm going to come out here and, in keeping with it being a printer, let my customer tell me they're going to keep it until 2028, knowing that in reality, they probably won't get rid of it.
They're going to keep it till it breaks.
Yeah, literally when it catches on fire, they'll get rid of it. So now this has removed that asset from this same filter. So once we have a nice clean filter that looks like this, no dollars in the replacement cost, once we've sorted to blue, we're good to go. Our asset list is clean enough to go present to a customer and have them get some good usage and data out of it. And most importantly, it's feeding the budget with really accurate data. So the next piece of sanity checking we'll jump to is the user list. Now, part of my user list, yours will look way better than mine. Yours is going to need to be cleaned up to look something like this. We're looking for very few red boxes over here in the center columns. Okay, the fact that my billing contact isn't subscribed to my Breach Secure Now subscription is probably okay. In fact, they probably shouldn't be subscribed to Augment either. But we're probably good on that shared mailbox. That's probably not a real problem. What would you say, Marnie?
I said, yeah, we're good with that.
We're good with that. Yeah. What we're not good with, though, is this thing right here. So we're probably going to have a conversation with our customer about the fact that MFA is not forced on for everyone. We'll figure out what's going on with Beth, and we'll have a bigger conversation about this.
I'm worried for Beth. She hasn't logged in over 2 days. So maybe
yeah,
Beth's been sick.
And in my demo environment, none of my customers have. But, when you're looking at this in your real environment, most of these should be green, right? Yeah. So don't mind our demo data, but what you're going to see is we've got a user here who we need to have a conversation about. Certainly MFA needs to be a conversation because it's enabled but not enforced across the entire tenant. Next thing we're going to do is just sanity check the budget, make sure that what we're presenting to our customer makes sense to us in a budget forecast. I'm really looking here for the big expensive year. So I know I'm going to have a tough conversation with my client about 2024. Hey, Mr. Customer, there's coming a year where you're going to have a significant workstation replacement expense, where we're going to spend a lot of money on contracts and subscriptions, and just everything seems to kind of peak here. Are you going to be okay? We'll talk about that year to them. And I'm also going to look at the next 12 months and make sure that I don't see anything that's really going to make my customer crazy. I'll probably give them a little warning that March of 2023 could be a bad month, and just make sure that they're expecting it and they're comfortable with it. You notice here, I've got some pre-save settings. We have some videos and such on how to record those pre-save settings. If you have questions about how I got those, drop a support ticket and we'll send you those videos. We want to make sure you understand all that, but I'm not going to jump into that too deep in the webinar today. Next thing we're going to look at is contracts and subscriptions to make sure that we have everything listed that we want to have. I have a lot of contracts listed for this customer. This allows my budget to be really a total cost of ownership budget instead of just hey, here's a list of PC replacements. And Marnie, you mentioned something about that. You were talking to some folks in your travels earlier this week about Tco budgeting, and it really turned the light on for some folks. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had talked about, the same thing you and I talk about all the time. If you're just delivering a forecast of all the ways they're going to pay you, that doesn't feel very strategic, right? But if the budget goes beyond that, and what they were most intrigued about was the notion of, first, how strategic it is for them. If we include line of business application software that they're not buying through you, printer, copier, phone services, all of those types of things. First, seat at the table for the strategic conversation, right? Including how maybe we can find ways to save you on your budget, right? As opposed to, let's go line item my own bill. But the one piece that really this one business owner said, I'd never thought about this. You're right. Some of those line of business applications are still one time a year cost, and they're very expensive. So if I cannot talk about 2 server replacements when I've got my Dentrix, dental line of business application software due that month, or my Salesforce bill, I'm suddenly just smoothing the path for my own conversation.
Well, if I'm a dentist and my EHR bill has to be paid. I can't not pay it. I'm out of business.
Correct.
Right? Can I
Right.
sit on the server for 3 more months, or can I push that down? And so what happens is they tell us no, even though we think we made a great presentation on why they should make this take this
And if you're
recommendation.
not aware of that time frame, right, you're not sure about why that no is.
Right.
And
I
then
think I nailed it. I gave a great sales pitch. I told him all the reasons. He was nodding his
he
head the whole
nodded his
time.
head, he wanted the server, and then he said no. I
Yeah.
also told him William's story, how he went into the one place with multiple locations and found that as soon as COVID hit, every location had paid for their own VoIP service. So they had 17 different phone contracts, and he was able to point out all the phone contracts and narrow it down to like, how about I just sell you my VoIP provider? Ton of strategic partnership there.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then savings.
Absolutely. And to answer Devin's question, absolutely. A lot of this data comes right out of ConnectWise. You can see here, I'm importing agreements from ConnectWise Manage. Anything that has a little asterisk over here has been imported from Manage on this screen, but also my assets and my users and such come from ConnectWise, so that we can pull them in this way. And then the last thing we want to look at before we really get ready is the assessments, right? We want to make sure that we've run an assessment event for this customer. We're going to be using this assessment event right here. So actually, I'm just going to go ahead and go in here and change the date for this just so that it's easy for us to find. We'll date this today.
I better pay attention to this because I've been used to grabbing the
right. Yep. So we're actually going to date this.
I think it's October 20th, if my
Yeah, whew, time flies. All right, so we're going to date this October 20th. This is a comparison assessment because we ran a similar one already for this customer, but this is the data that we're going to go put out in front of the customer. So what I'm thinking about from this screen really is just, have I got a complete assessment? I can check that real quickly by saying, hey, show me the unanswered items. Nope, we're good. We're good to go here. Every question has been answered. And then I can quickly go back here and look at the summary from this. This is where my customer stands. If there's a category of focus that we need to take for the next quarter or something that's going to lead my conversation, I might pick that up from here. Hardware replacement is going to be a big thing for this customer. We scored them pretty poorly there. I'm going to look at item detail, just kind of working my way down here. All these reds, these are the things I care about. These are the things that I want to solve for. So this gets into kind of a fun little exercise we decided to do today. We're going to let you guys play along and help us make some decisions about what replacements we're going to do and how we're going to handle some of this stuff. So, Marnie, we were talking about workstations, and I think that one's kind of a given. Should I go ahead and do that one first?
Yeah, go ahead with that. We will
Right.
go ahead and build that one, and then I will we'll launch the poll.
So we're going to solve for workstation replacements. Here we flagged the customer and said some of their workstations are past EOL and have warranties that are expired. We did. We had some 7 or 8 year old machines here. We also have some machines that are white box builds that won't do encryption. And we have some machines that have operating systems on them that are still Windows 7. So those are no longer supported. And you see, once I started checking boxes over here, I can solve all 3 of these problems with the same recommendation. I now have the ability to create a recommendation. So I'm going to pop out, create that recommendation, and I'm going to create a Windows 7 replacement project. Okay, as you can see, I may have typed that in my browser window once or twice. This applies to all of the client's locations, so I'm not going to pick a specific one. They haven't given me a date for it, but I'm really going to push this customer to get this done before the end of the year. So I'm going to push this customer to get this work done in November. I'm just going to blanket out the entire month of November to get this work done in. We probably would give it a better name over here. So this would be right. So limit the risk to the organization, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to charge the customer anything here. I'm not going to fill anything in here until I get my assets linked to the recommendation. So you see here, I've already brought forward the assessment items that failed. These are the 3 things that we can turn from red to green by doing this work. But I'm going to go ahead and add some physical assets to show the customer what I want to replace. So we're going to grab Windows 7. Including that white box that doesn't have a TPM chip, so I can't encrypt it. So we're going to pull those assets forward. We can see there's 7, 8, 9, 14 years old. These are dinosaurs. We need to get these out of the client's environment. When I built all of this out, I had included all of my labor in the replacement cost for each of these assets. So you can see the tool has already done the math for me. It knows I need to spend $10,200 to replace these 5 workstations. There's really not a whole lot more for me to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this recommendation and get it set up for my customer. We'll go show you guys in a few minutes where that actually carries forward into the budget and some of those kind of things. So we've got those 3 taken care of. We need to move on to the server, I think is kind of the next guy, right?
So yeah, I'm going to launch a poll, because what we were thinking is that, so we want you all to help us decide how we want to build the recommendations. So we've got 3 questions here. And if you can just give your imaginary answer for this imaginary client, we'll see what we can do to help them out. So the first one is, what do we want to do about expired servers? Do we want to replace them with another on-site server, or do we want to move them to the cloud? Question 2, they have an out-of-date firewall. Do we purchase new hardware or move to hardware as a service? And how do we want to price MFA? It's all included in our service agreement. We want to charge for deployment only, or we charge for deployment and a monthly recurring expense. So
make sure you get your vote in there. The tie goes to the dealer. So if you guys tie in there somewhere, I get to pick the easy way out. While you guys are filling that in, I'm going to deal with the one last thing that we have down here, which is that we have several policies that the client needs help with. So we're going to have to do a policy engagement with the customer. This is just where we spend some time, build them some labor dollars to have a policy engagement. So I'm going to go ahead and build that recommendation real fast. And this is going to be proposed. We're going to recommend that we address these 4 policies that the customer needs. We're not going to put a date on it. We're going to let them kind of specify it. And we're going to charge about, I don't know, $2,500 to help them build 3 policies. Okay. There's no assets linked to this. It's a one-time purchase. Life is easy. So we can save that recommendation. That one's easy to get done while we figure out the rest of these. All right. So these guys really want us to move this server to the cloud. I like that. They're going to make me do this the hard way. All right.
I'm going to share the results real quick so they can see where we're not cheating. Alex is going to move to the cloud because 70% of you wanted that to happen. Ooh, it was close to a tie, but you got a little hardware as a service for the next one. And then for the last one, we're going to charge both for deployment and an MRR. Perfect.
Alrighty. So servers going to the cloud. We're going to grab that one first. We actually do have an out-of-date operating system on a server too. So we're going to grab this red and the server, and we're going to go show them on a new recommendation. So here we have server migration to Azure. And what we're going to do is go ahead and leave this in a proposed status. It applies to all locations, but if it was just one location, I could select a location. And here we're going to say,
so really, this is just enough of a description to jog their memory later of why they're doing this, right?
Yep.
So
I know that in order to get this done, I need to have some key contacts from my customer available. I also know that I need a smart guy from my team and maybe me to come run some interference. So I've got my smart guy and I've got me attached to it. I've got some critical contacts at the customer site attached to this. We need to go find the assets that we're going to be replacing. So we'll come back over here to our asset list and search for servers.
I feel like it's clear.
You know,
there's a lot of red we need to get rid of.
I can see why it's time to make them go away. And this is a nice conversation to have with our client, right? Instead of spending $12,000 to replace a physical box, we're going to migrate this into the cloud, and we're going to show all that money in the budget so that they can see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and stick that on there. We have the physical assets. We have the problems that we're going to solve over here, the risk assessment failures. At this point, we probably want to recommend a date and time to do this, because when we're going to go show a $400 or $500 or $600 a month Azure bill, we really need to reflect when that will start to hit the client's budget. Since I haven't talked to them yet, this is all going to be still in a proposed status, but we're going to decide to do this work the first 2 weeks of January. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and then we're going to save it. Now I've got a little bug here. I said I was going to move these to Azure, and I have a $12,000 replacement cost. So I'm going to introduce you guys to this little checkbox down here that says replace. Well, we're not actually going to replace these. We're actually going to sling these into the cloud. And if you noticed, when we sling them into the cloud, we now have the option for recurring cost. That was not there a minute ago. Your eyes aren't deceiving you. When I save the recommendation the first time, then this line shows up and gives me the option to set this up. So now I can create a new recurring charge. I can call this Microsoft, or if we're going to be billing it directly, it might be the MSP name. Account just gives you a place to identify where they're going to put it on their P&L. We said that this is for the Lewis store. The impact on this is high because we're going to be sticking something in the cloud that they need to have access to run their business. It does live at a third party. If we had a bill or some sort of a bill of materials or anything like that, and we wanted to attach a link to where that document lives out in SharePoint or whatever, we could do that. And then this is hosting for the servers in Microsoft Azure. We're going to bill for this every single month. Let's say it's going to cost us $650, maybe $750. Azure's expensive. And we're going to start this on December 1st when we start this project. I am not going to put an end date on this. And I want to explain the why behind that. If I put an end date on it, then I'm going to bill for this for December 1st until the end date, $750 a month. Even if they move this out of Azure and go to AWS, or even if they leave my organization and go to work with somebody else, they're still going to have to spend money for this. So we're really going to want to make sure that we leave this open-ended, and that'll just mean $750 a month forever as we show this out on the budget. Link could go to, say, our quote valet with the Azure bill or labor, et cetera. Correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct. You can send that link back to whatever tool you use for quoting, or if you have a direct vendor quote that reflects the customer pricing, right? If they're buying this from a third party, not directly from you, you could link that there as well. I wouldn't put anything here with your internal pricing that's going to then get marked up to your customer. Hopefully I made that clear. All right, so we're going to save that. Now we see we have monthly $750, nothing on labor, materials, or replacement. We've got everything attached over here. Life is good. Any questions about what we did there? Okay. So I've accounted for servers. I've accounted for workstations. We haven't accounted for the firewall, and you guys decided you wanted me to do this as a hardware as a service firewall. So we're going to do it the hard way again. You guys are not letting me off easy. Now, notice I do have some yellows down here. If there was something down here that was attached to one of these, and maybe this was going to help with it, I could check those check boxes off as well. I don't think anything here really bleeds into the firewall. So let's just go ahead and get that replaced. So again, I'm going to do something similar. Actually, I have a saved template. This is a good opportunity for me to show you guys saved templates. I have an opportunity for a saved template. It is a one-time charge for a firewall replacement, and it doesn't have a lot of detail. So under our Haas agreement, we're probably not going to charge them any labor, so I'm going to go ahead and zero that out. We're going to select a date range. Since this is probably already covered in their agreement, they probably don't even have to approve this. We're just sticking out there a monthly bill, to account for the new firewall. So, and it may be just a replacement of an existing, right, that was already being hardware as a service to them. I'm going to go out here and find my assets. I think in this organization, they are Sonic walls, and we're going to replace a whole bunch of them. So we're going to grab all the Sonic walls. Yep, we're going to replace all of those. They are not actually being replaced. We're not charging them a one-time replacement fee for them. So we're going to pull all those off. And then if you had an installation or setup charge in your agreement, you would put that here, but maybe, most likely we don't, but I'll stick something small in there just so you guys can see how we would handle it. Save the recommendation, and then come down and add the recurring monthly service for it. We're hardware as a servicing 6 firewalls. So I'm going to go ahead and say, and this might actually fall under telecom, who knows? These are going to all the locations. So we'll leave this one blank. It's not going to let me leave it blank now that I selected one. I can cancel this and start over, but yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, this applies to all their locations, so we're going to leave it alone. It's a high impact. Nobody's happy when the network's down. It's getting billed directly to me, so we're not going to add anything there for the URL. We're going to bill this monthly, but notice we could bill this at any term that we needed, right? We could bill this quarterly. We could bill this at any
When I think the
direction
fact
we
that
need to go.
there's, every other year, every 3 years, that's important because a lot of folks struggle to figure out how to make that magic happen. So those are options if you need them.
Yep. And same thing, we're going to give it a start date, no end date. If this was something smaller or something that we knew that they were going to at some point go buy their own firewalls or whatever, then we would put an end date on the contract, but we want it to bill out forever. So we're good to go. We've got that date on there. That date matches it does not match my date up here. I goofed it up. That was a January 1st. Yeah. Okay. Now my dates are closer. Okay. So now we have our firewall as a service recommendation. And then we're going to do one last one. These guys want me to deploy MFA as
MRR and a deployment cost.
MRR and a deployment cost. They are determined not to let me off easy today.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So
I think we're maximizing our capitalization on this project.
We are. Okay. So we're going to go grab MFA. We're going to create this. We're going to call this a Cisco Duo rollout. Because they give you guys free internal use licenses, they're probably everybody's favorite. At least they're probably the most popular. And since we love them, we'll launch our rollout out here.
On Valentine's
Right, we'll do it on Valentine's Day. Oops.
I would have thought Groundhog Day because it's something you're going to do over.
Well,
and over.
That is always possible. Again, I need my smart guy, so I'm going to make sure that that Kurt's involved here. They don't need me involved in this one, but I do need a couple of primary client contacts at each location to make sure that we get in touch with all the humans to get this rolled out. This is our recommendation to address multi-factor authentication. We are going to charge them labor up front, so we're going to charge them $2,000 to roll it out. And then we're going to need to charge ourselves some, there are no physical assets linked to this, but we're going to need to charge ourselves one of those recurring contract fees. So if I put new recurring costs out here, we're going to do the same thing with it. Impact is medium. Third party, no, they're buying it direct from the MSP. Right, put MFA everywhere. If I wanted them to pay for this quarterly, I could, whatever. We can play with these numbers any way we want. We decided that we were going to do this way out here. Save that, and life is good. Well, you guys did it. You made me create a bunch of recommendations. Let's go see what they look like. I think that's the logical next step here. But every one of these has a recommendation on it. If I wasn't sure if each of these had a recommendation or just wanted to sanity check this, I could actually go right back here and go to Analytics by Customer and go look at links to recommendation here. And over here, what we're going to do is when I go to grab the right assessment event, which is the one for here. Yep. Then I'm going to be able to see that all of my reds have now been attached to a recommendation and my yellows and greens and blues have not. So there's a few things there that that we might not want to deal with, or that we haven't planned for yet. And that's okay. We go into recommendations. We're going to see all of those recommendations built out. Just for giggles, we're going to assume that we've had a little bit of a conversation with our customer. And as much as we pushed on Cisco Duo, they said, you know what? I really don't want to do that. I'm never going to do multi-factor authentication. This is your worst customer ever. I'm sorry.
That is bad.
They're a bonehead, but they've declined this recommendation. Maybe they declined it at their last QBR. So we're going to go ahead and save this recommendation as declined. What that's going to do is strip the $2,000 and the $600 off your budget. And I'm going to show you today how to present a declined recommendation back to your customer on the regular so that you can continue to poke them and say, hey, remember when I told you you should do this? We really want to make sure that
you should do this.
I still think you should do it. I'm reminding you about it because my insurance company requires me to. If you don't believe me, call your insurance company and ask them if you should remind your customers about a declined recommendation, and they'll tell you yes. And this puts you in that defensible position. God forbid anything terrible were to happen. So now we go look at recommendations. We're good. We got some recommendations hanging out here. We're going to jump down into the the report builder, and we're going to start getting ourselves ready to go meet with the customer. So I'm going to not use one of my fancy templates, but we have a bunch of templates built in here. The longer that you work with your customers, the more templates you'll have. But we're going to build one from scratch today, and we're going to lead off with a cover page. And I don't know where my Microsoft Word cover page is, so this will be a treat. Let me go see if I can find one. I just realized I didn't prepare for that. Let's see. It's certainly not there. Let's go look for. I might have to go download that real fast.
You want me to go grab it?
Yeah.
Build the rest and I'll go get it.
Okay. So Marnie's going to put a cover page on this for me. And then I'm going to go out and put together an agenda template. So let's put an agenda on this guy so that we know what we're going to talk about. There is a sample agenda out here in the tool. So don't hesitate to grab that. Oh, you know what, Marnie? I know where I can get my cover page from, can't I? I don't know if it'll let me do that. We're going to try something neat. Let's go add that MS Word template and see if I can pull it, because I know it's already on this QBR down here. Yeah, let's see if we can grab this one. Cover page, add. Hey, it's already got it. Good deal. Okay. So I had a cover page on a previous assessment that I did that I just basically stole this from. If you're watching this on the recording, you'll be able to see me go back and add a component and steal it out of a different library. So I've got a cover page. I've got an agenda. This is kind of where we set the stage for our customer. Our agenda is literally the list of things that we want to discuss with the customer. We like to recommend you send this over early so that you can get this section right here filled in by your customer. Have them tell you what's changing in their business. How are they going to handle a recession in 2023? What's it going to do to the business? Do they need more technology in order to supplement or replace people? Do they need less technology because they're going to have fewer humans and they're going to need to retire things? What's changing, and how can this strategic conversation that we're having really be geared toward what's realistic to your customer right now today? Once we've done that, we're going to go look at an assessment. The first thing we want to start with is an assessment summary template. So when we grab an assessment summary, that's going to give us the ability to tell our customer kind of, this is where we start today, Mr. Customer. If we do nothing different, this is the risk that we have to live with. And you notice I went and selected from my summary template this assessment that we ran today. So you're going to see me grab that from the drop down a lot of times. But if I wanted to change it, I could run the assessment. I could show them an assessment that was created in the past. We have that whole history on this client that we could utilize. Once I show them the summary, I'm going to want to go into a little bit of detail. Now, I could go into a ton of detail with this customer if I wanted to give them all of the detail. I'm just going to give them my reds and yellows. So if we look at this assessment, I want to give them the reds, I want to give them the yellows. We'll show them what they marked as acceptable risk, the things that they won't let me fix. But I don't need to, for example, check satisfactory and talk through all of the green items that this customer has, all the things that we marked and said, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I talked to an MSP yesterday who said, when I go through an assessment with a customer, they get kind of bored. And when I showed him this, he realized he could talk about just the things that needed improvement, just the things that were actionable. And that's where our customers get bored with us, is when we start talking about things that they don't need to take action on, or maybe can't even take action on. So we're going to show them the assessment summary. We'll show them the reds and yellows. And because this customer's been a customer for a while, I want to show them an assessment comparison. This is going to let the customer see how they are versus the last time I ran this assessment. So this time they're a 77, last time they were a 41. They obviously took some of my recommendations, even though they won't take this multi-factor authentication one. But they've taken some of my recommendations. They've improved things. They're in a better place than they used to be, even though some servers have gone stale since then. Most things have moved up in the world. You can see all these kind of going green. This customer is not mired in the details. They're very much a high-level visionary type customer who just wants to see the bare basics. So I'm going to remove some of that extra detail off of here and just let the customer see, hey, I improved in this category. I improved in this category. I actually backslid just a tiny bit here in this business applications category. But other than that, we're doing okay. Got some regulatory compliance catch up to do. We backslid in a couple of little places there. It's important that we have these conversations about the way that when we buy new technology, we get better. Technology gets old and we backslide, and then we buy it again, and how this is cyclical. This is what helps encourage your customer to continue to come back to the table. So understand that is an important part of having the conversation. This is a great tool. The next thing comes down to budget forecast. you'll see two budget forecast templates in the system. My favorite is the spreadsheet view. I'm going to use it, and I like it so much I'm going to use it twice. So I'm going to come over here and add a pair of budget forecast templates here. And now you can see I've got a pair of them built in. What I would like to point out is that some of these things here, you probably want to clean up. What you see here as little headers are going to show up at the top of the page when we do the presentation view. So I'm going to come over here and tweak these budget. Oh, I put in one of the wrong kind of budget forecasts. That is not the one that I wanted. I want this pretty spreadsheet view. So budget forecast, spreadsheet view. And I like the spreadsheet view because our client, it's just the way that our client thinks about numbers. So I'm going to edit this one and call it a 6-month budget forecast. Maybe we'll do 12-month. Not a budget. Let's see. I got to be able to type and talk at the same time, and that is super difficult. And then I'm going to come down here and edit this one and call it a 5-year budget. Okay, so now I've got these two budgets for my customer, a near-term and actionable budget. I'm a big fan of this, and I'm going to go change reporting options over here. We're going to grab everything for the next 12 months. So we're going to go monthly times 12. This gives me the ability to sit down with my customer and have a conversation about some of these recommendations I've added and what it's going to do to their monthly, exactly how some of this money is going to fall out. And then in the 5-year budget, I get a different view with my customer where I can sit down, and I call this the canary in the coal mine budget, right? Every one of our customers has a bad year somewhere. It's when they didn't replace anything, and then all their Windows XP came due for end of life, and then they didn't replace anything after that until Windows 7 went end of life, and now that stuff's all coming back around again. So we want to make sure that we can point that out to the customer, and here's the number that we're going to use for that. If you noticed, if you were paying attention earlier when we looked at these, when we were back over here in the budget, on the budget screens, we saw smaller numbers. Because since we did that, we've added in a pile full of recommendations that have added dollars to the budget. So I want you guys to notice where your recommendations kind of fall in. And you can see if we didn't put a date on the recommendation, it just lives over here in recommendations not scheduled. So interesting. I just want to point that out so you guys can see if you're following along at home and you realize that the numbers changed. It's not magic in a webinar demo. It really is that some of this has changed along the way as we added things in here. So we got two budgets we're going to talk about. Now we're going to go in here and add ourselves a recommendation that we want our customer to fix. So if you guys had to pick one of these recommendations, which one's the most important? I think that's kind of the conversation that we have. And we might add 2 of them to talk about, but you're certainly not going to add 7 or however many recommendations you have for your customer. So I'm going to add 2 recommendation summaries. I would really like them to talk about Windows 7 replacement. That is the one that I'm just dying to get done. And then we're going to talk about the server migration to Azure. I think those are the 2 that need the most explanation to my customer, mostly because I want to beat them over the head with Windows 7 and then get them to move that server where it needs to go. The rest of the recommendations, most of them fall into next year. So we're just going to put a recommendations roadmap in here so that we can have a conversation with the customer about what the future holds. And when we do this, you can see mine is stuck on declined here. We're going to go tweak this and look at it and see if we can figure out why things are declined. Well, we had a scheduled recommendation that got declined. So we're going to go grab our 2023 declined one and stick it out here. But I also need a roadmap of the not declined stuff. And I'll jump in here and show you guys what I was playing with there. Here we have declined. And then over here, we're going to have the approved ones. On the approved ones, I don't want to show just declined. So I'm going to dig into my settings on this report. We're going to actually show them everything that has been proposed, accepted, planned, in progress, on hold, or completed.
And those are all customizable, so you don't have to have 19 ways to say.
You don't have to, and you might not have all this crazy stuff I have up here.
Yeah. Demo sites make you do crazy
demo sites get extra data, right?
Yeah.
But here we can show as many years as we want. Some of these recommendations have MRR attached to them, so you'll see a recommendation shows the MRR off in future years, even though there's no real work to be done. So as I show this, the second year of each of these is literally just the extra MRR that those are going to add to the client's bill. This reinforces to them, hey, not only have I sold you a thing, but I've accounted for the fact that you have to pay for that thing forever. I didn't just sell it to you and forget to talk about the fact that this is a recurring bill, right? We're helping them have that conversation. We're going to add one more component here. We're going to add an executive summary template. That is just a text block template. Text block templates are kind of cool in our system. We give you the ability to come out here and say, hey, here's some things I want to talk about with this customer. For this particular customer, I'm already showing them the risk assessment data somewhere else, so I don't need to have this information. But there is something else I want to talk to them about. I'd really like to talk to them about Microsoft Secure Score. They need to tighten up their Microsoft environment. So I'm just going to come out here. I'm going to grab a picture of the Secure Score environment, or of the Secure Score overview, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it on my clipboard, and I'm going to run back over to my recommendation, or to my executive summary. I'm going to put this picture in here. I'm going to center it, and it's going to show up really nice and neat when I get there. I sit down and have a conversation with the customer about that. So we're going to show them some budget numbers. If things have changed, I'm probably going to have to show them, that the budget has gone up, right? As we've added money to it, et cetera. We can type in here what their actual project updates are, what their top risks are, what their top recommendations are. But we can edit this and customize it to the exact customer. This is what I liken to the fold in the newspaper. Everything after this, below the fold. This is stuff that we don't necessarily need to talk about with the customer, but it kind of is our job to give it to the client and make sure that they understand what's going on in their environment. So do we have any Breach Secure Now folks in the room? Let's give our folks some Breach Secure Now data. Here we're going to show them.
We also have Know Before, so if
we do have Know Before.
Yeah.
Their API is not nearly as MSP friendly, but here's the Breach Secure Now one. It gives us nice visibility into the users who's experienced a breach. We've had 2 breaches in the environment. We can show the folks with the low ESS scores, et cetera. Maybe we just want to show them the folks with the low ESS scores, right? These are the people who aren't taking training seriously. So we can boil that report down to what these guys need. No tie-in to CoFence or Sentinel-1 at this point. We're always looking at new integrations. So if you become a partner and have an interest in those, just go ahead and click on help down here, put in a contact us, and let us know what tools you're using that you'd like to see us integrated with. Specifically, tell us what data points are in those tools that you're interested in, because once we have the use case, it typically tracks a little better and a little faster. I'd like to put some data in here about
SaaS monitoring.
SaaS monitoring, yeah, that thing. So let's put some SaaS monitoring data in here. This is our friends over at SaaSleo. They give us a great report that shows us how many apps were added to the environment in August. We can see by risk. I probably don't care about low risk items, so we're just going to hide low risk. Then we're going to be able to have a nice, easy conversation with our customer about the number of SaaS apps that was added to the environment. We have a couple different reports for a lot of these folks. These are things that easy enough. We can pull data from a lot of these different tools. And then we're going to give them just some basic, hey, every compliance requirement probably tells you have to inventory your assets. You have to inventory your users. You have to know who and what you support. So let's add an asset list and a user list. Again, your user list is going to be prettier than mine, so I'm going to stick a little filter on it real fast. You won't have to do this, but your user list should look something like this. And then from here, the last thing we want to include is just a list of all the contracts I used to build out that budget. We presented a nice big budget to the customer. I want to show them all the things that we included. I usually flip back to this last page as I'm presenting and tell the customer, hey, these are all the things that I included. If you've bought any SaaS applications, if you've got any new subscriptions that we don't talk to, or that we haven't talked about or referenced in your budget, just let me know and we'll get those added. But here's the ones that I know about and the ones that I've included. I'm good to go. I've got a QBR. I know it's taken me 45 minutes. I talk a lot, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and save this template. And this is the QBR your customer deserves. And we're going to save it. Now that I've saved all this, I've got a couple different options. I can go create my customer a Word doc or a PDF from it. We're going to give you guys, along with the recording to this webinar, if you signed up, you will get an email including a PDF of this type of output the QBR your customer deserves. It'll have some little sticky notes on it. The cool thing about the sticky notes is they kind of tell you what we're thinking about when we're on a page. What are we talking about to our customer? What are we communicating at that point? What are the things that are important to us? But then we can also click on that little monitor button. That's going to give us the ability to pop things out into what we call presentation mode. You probably can't see that on my screen, so let me go share a different window. And now you see we have a presentation view that's ready for our customer. So basically in this view, we get to sit down with a client, show them cover page, agenda, and I can also click through the breadcrumbs down here. An assessment summary, Mr. Customer. If we didn't change anything in your environment, you're following about 77% of my best practices. Today, this is what that looks like. Now, I would really like it if we could improve this hardware score. This is a place where I feel like we have the most problem. We'll talk today about some things that I might recommend towards this. Regulatory compliance would be my next concern for you, as you can see by these by the assessment that we ran. Here are the things that we identified that we think are the biggest problem. I'm going to go through how we might mitigate all of the reds today. The yellows we'll save for a future conversation. Here's how we're doing on improvement over time. We used to score 41. Now we're scoring a 77. That looks a little funky the way that I've got the window there, but I promise you these here, when you make the window full size and aren't trying to present it on a webinar, those will clean themselves up. 12-month view of a budget, Mr. Customer. If we don't, I've included a couple of recommendations in the budget here. You can see where I've added the money for these. Some of these are not necessarily approved by you yet. So let's go look at what that might change, how that might change for you. If you don't put dollars on the budget, you'll see recommendations in not scheduled. You'll get to talk to your customer about those. I'm also going to talk about overdue spend, right? Hey, Mr. Customer, before the end of the year, I need you to spend another $42,000. And if we don't want to walk into next year still carrying around some technology debt, we've also got to satisfy this $12,800 that's sitting back here on the left. So really, we've got to spend about $5,500, or $55,000 by the end of the year. If we don't, we walk into 2023 with 114 plus $55,000. So make sure you explain to your customer how the debt snowball works, how we just have to start adding things from left to right to make sure that the customer understands, understands how this works. Yeah, we'll send you guys Devin's asking about the printed format. We'll send you the printed copy as well. I can pull it up here as soon as we're done and scroll through it real quick as well. This works really well when you're doing this over a screen. If you're doing this on Zoom or whatever, if you're meeting your customer face to face, I like a paper book. It lets me hold the customer accountable, not let them scroll forward too fast. I can turn the pages with them, walk through it, write on it with a Sharpie. I'm a little old school, I guess. But we're going to talk to our customer about this Windows 7 replacement project. We'll show them the assets that need to be replaced. We'll show them the reasons why we need to replace those assets. We'll help them get through this. They'll tell us, yep, it's proposed, but I'm willing to go ahead and do it. You send me an invoice for $10,000. We'll go ahead and get that paid, and we'll get these machines ordered. We'll do the same for this other recommendation, the migration to the cloud. We didn't charge them anything in labor, but we are going to charge them $750 a month to do this. Here are the problems that we solve. Recommendations roadmap. Here's all the things that we want the customer to do over the next 2 years, 2.5 years. The declined recommendation, Mr. Customer, don't forget, I did recommend that you deal with this. My insurance company requires me to come back and tell you about this every time we talk, because this is a minimum requirement for our insurance coverage. You won't be able to sue me if you get a breach because you haven't done this, because we've talked about it over and over and over again. And if you sue me, my insurance company will fight you tooth and nail. You'll find a nicer way than me to say that, but basically we need to remind our customer that they own this risk. We do not. That strategic bit, that executive summary, this is going to give you the ability to kind of wrap things up for your customer. I'm probably done talking right here. Okay, unless there's something in those supporting reports down below that I really feel like I need to get across to my customer, I'm probably done talking. I've talked about everything what the status quo looks like. I've talked about funding and how we're going to pay for it. I've talked about some recommendations and some improvement. Hopefully I sent my assessment or my agenda out early. Anything that my customer had that was a concern has been included in one of those topics, right? We've made a recommendation to make sure we're going to approach everything that they're concerned about, et cetera. And we've kind of led this in the right direction. That said, if there is something that they have questions about, or you need some supporting documentation, it's real easy for us to just jump down and go, hey, Mr. Customer, well, we're replacing replacing those Windows 7 machines because here's how they sit. And the next machines you'll need to replace are going to be these things that are starting to turn yellow here because those are going to go end of life next. So we're giving ourselves a lot of supporting documentation. We don't necessarily need to use every piece of it on the call. Okay. One of the reasons we really love the presenter view as opposed to the printed view is because things are still a little interactive, right? If they want to know what workstations get replaced when, we can go ahead and click into the budget. We can show them those things. It's really easy for us to have a conversation around all of these individual points. When
And
you
I
print this on
did
paper,
put the PDF in
Yep.
the chat for
Yep.
folks.
PDFs in the chat for anybody who wants it. But remember, when you print it on paper, you've got this delicate balance between thud factor reports that your customer just goes, oh God, I'm never going to read that, and something that really matters. And one trick I'll give you, when I used to print these for my customers, I would bind them in those little comb binders, and I would bind every page except the executive summary. And on my executive summary, I tried to have this bottom section here be, hey, this is what we updated. This is what we finished since last time we talked. Here's our quick update. Here's the 2 or 3 things I need you to do between now and next time we talk. And here's why, like right here's the risk that's associated with those. So these couple lines right here are what was really important to me. And I wouldn't bind that page. I would put it in place back here. But when I got ready to leave this with my customer, I would pull that page out, slide it to the front, and slide the whole thing across the table. Now, when they walk out of my meeting, they've got their packet of paper in hand. On the front are the things that they need to talk about, that they need to worry about. But I left it in the back long enough that they would let me own the conversation to get to it, right? We all know if you put that stuff in the front, they're going to focus right on the problem. They're going to flip to the page with the dollars. They're going to see how much it costs. They're not going to pay attention to the why behind any of it. So be careful when you're printing it that you kind of control the pace, that you deal with this, that you find a way to deal with this. That was my trick. It may or may not fit your personality or your presentation style, but that was kind of how we handled it. So that's it in a nutshell. If anybody wants to see the PDF, I do have it up over here, so I can pop open that screen. Questions, comments. I'm going to steal a Markism. Questions, comments, emotional outbursts. Anything we can help you guys with at this point. We're happy to take those questions. Here is.
While you pull that up, I'm going to put a link to the webinar for next week where I'll do a full demo of, if you've never,
Perfect.
connected the data before, what it looks like right out of the gate.
Yep.
So. Because if you're new to us today, you might have a lot of questions about how did all that land there, and I'll kind of go
right.
pieces.
Notice on the printed copy, we've stuck some digital sticky notes there. These are to give you kind of a refresher or reminder of what I was talking about when I was going through each page, right? So what is the conversation we're trying to get over to our customer when we have each of these individual components? So that's the lead behind for the book. Oh, Marnie, you sent that to hosts and panelists, not to everyone.
Oh, I did.
There's nothing else we typed into hosts and panelists, is there? Yes, the integrations, right? Somebody asked about integrations, and that all went to hosts and panelists as well. So our integrations, we integrate with Data Autotask as a primary integration. We don't have any standalone reports other for any of their other components. Currently, outside of the reports that come for user lists and asset lists and those kind of things, we include Microsoft Secure Score, Breach Secure Now, Know Before, Augment, SaaSleo, Smileback, a ticket summary from Manager Autotask. And then, obviously we're working to add more integrations as we go. So if there's tools that you're super attached to, make sure that you let us know about that. I do know that on the roadmap upcoming, there is a primary Hoodoo integration coming. So you'll be able to utilize Hoodoo as a primary data source, hopefully by the end of Q4. So that is in heavy development right now.
I think I managed to cut and paste everything again into
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. We appreciate it. This is a pretty commonly asked question, so it was great to get out here and be able to show it to you guys live and in person and kind of on the fly. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Marnie will throw an email address there in the chat where you can shoot us an email. And, we're happy to schedule demos. If you're an existing customer, we're happy to schedule some time just to help you get through getting one of these presentations out the door to your client. Yeah, thanks guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys coming out so we don't stand here and talk to ourselves, because we will.
Thanks all. Bye.